The open beta for New World Aeternum has just ended, and I'm going to give you my first impressions because the reactions across the internet have been relatively mixed. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. Let's jump in. So what exactly is New World Aeternum? Effectively, it's pretty much the same game that we played in 2021, but with some big improvements. It's the rebranding and the relaunch of New World, and that relaunch is coming out on October 15th. And very importantly, it's coming to console, both PlayStation 5 and both of the Xbox Series X and Series S. For PC players, it is effectively just going to be a normal update. If you own the base game and the expansion, then you just get updated to New World Aeternum. If you own the base game without the expansion, then you get the same, you just can't progress past level 60, I believe. But the big change comes for console players and people who are starting afresh, and there will be new servers on October 15th for both console and PC. And it's really the starting experience that has been fundamentally reworked. Now, I think this actually is the second time it's changed, and each time it's improved, and this time it's very good. The opening cinematic really sets the scene. You can tell there's a lot of effort been put into this. You then make your character with expanded options. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the character creator is great, because it's not, but it is definitely functioning, and it's improved because there's now more options. You also start with an archetype, which is sort of like a class, except this game doesn't have classes, and you can change this later. So let's say you want to be a mage, you can pick the occultist or whatever it is, or you can be a healer, or you can be a musketeer or something like that. But in New World, you are what you were, so you can change this later, you can change your weapons, you can change your armor. This just gets you started sooner with the build that you actually want, rather than just finding what you find on the beach. You then go through the opening tutorial, which, if I'm honest, is incredible. The visuals here are very, very nice indeed. Overall, the smoothness and the performance of the game definitely seems to have been improved. Some people were saying that they saw a slight downgrade, which I sometimes felt like I saw it, but then sometimes I didn't. If they have slightly lowered the quality of the graphics to improve performance, then it's not really very noticeable at all, but the performance was very good. When you land on the beach and there's hundreds of players around you, then it's very smooth and it worked very, very well. They have now also implemented layers on the beach, by the way, for the start of a new server. And as far as I can tell, that worked relatively well. Some people did have issues where they couldn't move, but as far as I can tell, they fixed that relatively quickly. When you wash up on the beach though, you start talking to the NPCs there, and you will go through a decent story talking to the NPCs where it sort of has this cinematic camera, it's all voice acted, and it's very, very good. The Monarch's Bluff story is slightly different from the Windswood story, but you all end up converging when you get to Jonas, around about level 18, I think. And there's not much else to say here. I think this is just so improved. I can see a lot of people enjoying it. The combat fits very well on a controller, both melee and ranged, probably a little bit better in melee, but it worked well in both in my case. There is an addition of lock-on, which has actually proved quite controversial to PC users, but on the console or on a controller, it works very nicely. You just press the right stick down, it locks onto your enemies, and then you can shoot them or attack them. For PC though, that's been a little bit controversial. Not because you can use it in PvE, nobody really cares about that. It's the fact that you can also now use this in PvP. And this has sort of been highlighted as being an issue with a clip from like Trick, where he basically did a duel blindfolded and won the duel because he was locked on and he was just tracking the enemy. Now, Trick's a very good player. I probably would have lost that duel if I had both my eyes, but it's proving very controversial on PC. Now, for me, it seems like the best players will know when to use that and when not to use it. It's going to be sort of like a tool in their arsenal rather than be something you will always want to use. In clumps, for example, I think it would be very distracting and not very good. And in Outpost Rush, if you're trying to play with a musket or a bow or something like that, and somebody's running across your screen, the game will like lock on, sure, but when you shoot, that person will have moved out of the way and it won't hit. That's not the case though if they are coming right towards you, and that's probably a use case where you would want to trigger it on. In duels and arenas, it seems like it's definitely going to have a place. And in melee, it feels quite strong because you literally won't miss. If somebody jumps sort of through you and you have to spin around and you're just spamming left click, well, it will now track them and hit them. It's very weird, very controversial. It's going to cause a lot of anger, I think, for PC players. But for controller and console users, it makes sense. Whether or not that will be addressed, we don't know. AGS apparently on Discord has said, hey, it's something we have heard your feedback on. I personally don't think they will change it because who is buying this? Who are the consumers now? Well, all those PC players, the majority of them already own the game, and they will not be spending the 50 to 70 to whatever amount of dollars it is. Console players who will benefit from this the most, and they're the people that they need to please because they're the ones actually paying. So I think they will keep it. There's been a couple of extra small things that have happened with the combat. Some of them might be a little bit of a bug, some of them might not be. One that might be a bug is that there is now increased stagger, which is fine in PvE, but in PvP, it looks like if your stamina is not full and you get staggered, you have to wait for your stamina to get back to full before you can dodge again. It's a little bit like being exhausted. I think that might be a bug, but if that is in the game, then it's going to be very punishing for light armor and healers, I think. Ultimately though, I think the leveling experience is so good, I think console players will be happy with the lock-on. I think that just makes sense. The story is told much better, the cutscenes are better, everything about the leveling is improved, and it sort of needed to be. Because when a lot of us played this game in 2021, when we actually did the leveling, it was very slow after about level 30 and very, very bad. They've drastically changed that. Now, the actual open beta was only up until level 30, but they've much improved that as well. You can probably get through that in about 6 to 10 hours if you're just doing the MSQ, and if you're speedrunning, you can probably do it in about 3 or 4 hours. That's to level 30, by the way. Now, the big changes for PC players come in two major forms. I'm not going to talk about the soul trials because I don't think they're going to be that important, but the two additions are simple. There is a 10-man difficult PvE raid. I say difficult, we've obviously not tried it, but I think the intent is that it's going to be the hardest content. And this is something you are going to want to do as a 10-person group once per week if you can, because it is probably the best way to get 725 gear, because the gear score is increasing from 700 to 725 with this update. And the 725 gear can be biscrafted with one of the inductors that you get from the raid, or you can get some decent named items at 725 with this item that drops from each boss, and I think you can probably get 4 of those a week. The PvE is going to be very important for everybody, I think. Now, whether or not this time gate is going to be a good decision, I'm not 100% sure. And there is a similar time gate in PvP. There is a new edition of a free-for-all PvP island, and there's 2 currencies that you get here. You get these doubloons, which you get from the chest, but you can also actually get from some chests outside of Cutlass Keys, and you get this golden coconut, basically. The coconut you only get from the big chest, and you can only get 1 per week, but you need that to upgrade your artifacts, I think, or you can use the inductor, I believe, actually. And this will then allow you to get 725 gear from the Well of Fortune. Now, my opinion here is that these chests are going to be camped by hardcore PvPers who just want to ruin the fun of people who are going to go in and get this and get out. Because it is a PvP island, they want to do that PvP, but for some people, they're not going to want to do it. They're just going to want to go in, try and get it, and then get out. And there's going to be a little bit of a conflict there, which is fine, right? It's a PvP island. You don't technically need to do it or have to have it or anything like that. But I think it's going to be the domain of the hardcore, and I think it's going to get camped, not just by single players, but by multiple people colluding together. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of this idea of time gate in the endgame like this. I don't mind time gates by default, but I would say that every time AGS has done stuff like this, it's never really worked very well. And we are now onto our maybe like 4th iteration of the endgame. I would say that if they knew what they were doing with the endgame, we would have one system that would just get updated. Instead, we keep getting different systems because I don't think they really truly know what is the best system for the game yet. Maybe this iteration will be it. Worth noting that I actually couldn't get into the PvE raid in this patch. It's not available because you need to be level 65. We could get into the PvP zone, but obviously all the mobs are level 65, and I can't really do anything with that. We were just sort of hiding and skulking around. Ultimately though, the leveling experience is so much better. The combat on console works very well. I do think it's going to be a case where there's 2 kinds of people. Console players and new players are going to come to the game and I think have a lot of fun and get their money's worth from the game. I do think that's the case. However, if you're a hardened and embittered, I call myself a veteran, I have played like over 4,000 hours or something, but if you're somebody who's a little bit more hardcore, or you've played this game a lot and you've played it several times, maybe you came back with Brimstone, maybe you came back with Rise of the Angry Earth, then effectively it's sort of more of the same, except you've not been getting that much content in the previous year. Whether or not this will mark a turning point and we will start getting actual content because we're not getting the console players as well, I'm not sure. I think it's going to do very well on console though. We saw the numbers on the New World database. It looked like maybe like 40,000 people were playing the beta, and that was more than I expected, and I think New World Aeternum is going to do very well. For me, I might start playing it very casually, but I'm sort of, I think, trending away from New World, but we'll see. Maybe the roadmap will be interesting, because apparently we're getting a roadmap after New World Aeternum comes out. Would have been nice to have that before, but they're not giving it to us. For a lot of people though, they're going to be having a lot of enjoyment with it. The console players, I think, will enjoy it. And then for the hardcore veterans, it might just feel like a little bit of a cash grab to milk the console players. What the truth will be ultimately, well, maybe we'll find out soon. If you like this video, like, subscribe, have a beautiful day. Goodbye.